Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at something that is, well, as beautiful as it is incredibly dangerous. Normally we think of jewels and crystals as symbols of status, right? Proof of wealth. But what happens when that dazzling beauty gets weaponized? Today, we are diving deep into the fascinating intersection of a classic pop culture trope and some incredibly tragic video game lore. Let's get right into it. So what do Captain James T. Kirk, the kaiju space Godzilla, and a magic-wielding sorcerer in Dark Souls possibly have in common? On the surface, absolutely nothing. You've got 1960s sci-fi, 90s Japanese monster movies, and modern dark fantasy. But there's this very specific, very sharp thread tying them all together. And it's a concept that creators across all media literally just can't seem to get enough of. Which brings us to Section 1, the gemstone assault trope. To answer that question, we first need to look at the broader media landscape and a trope known as the gemstone assault. As documented over on TV Tropes, gemstone assault is the violent use of shiny jewels and crystals as projectiles. Normally in fiction, gems are either, batteries for some doomsday device or fancy decorations for an Uncle Pennybags type to show off his cash. But some characters prefer showing off their shiny jewels the violent way. Since crystals are way harder than your average rocks, they make for some seriously painful, armor-piercing projectiles. And this trope is absolutely everywhere. You've got Captain Kirk literally using diamond dust as a projectile against the Gorn in Star Trek. You've got Annie, the female Titan, in Attack on Titan, crystallizing her skin to just smash right through enemy armor. In JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Noriaki Kakyo in Stand fires this rapid burst called the Emerald Splash. And honestly, my personal favorite, Space Godzilla telekinetically hurling huge crystal missiles called homing goats that rain down from the sky. It's awesome. But while anime and sci-fi use this for flashy combat sequences, one franchise took weaponized crystals and turned it into some deeply tragic, horrifying lore. Moving on to Section 2, Origins of Crystal Sorcery. Dark Souls traces its crystal magic through this very specific, doomed lineage. It all starts with Seath the Scaleless, a pale white dragon who betrayed his own kind, became the grandfather of sorcery, and developed crystal magic. Then we have the legendary sorcerer Big Hat Logan. He studied Seath's dangerous insights and, eventually went hollow from reading the books in Seath's archives, meaning he entirely lost his mind. Finally, that cursed branch of sorcery was inherited and carried on by the Crystal Sages. The crucial thing here is how Dark Souls completely flips the standard script on gems. Normally, finding a diamond or an emerald means jackpot, right? You've gained wealth and status. But in Dark Souls, crystals are a cursed magic. They aren't a symbol of what you possess, they represent what possesses you. Using them comes at a terrifying mental and spiritual cost. And to really understand that cost, we have to look at the modern inheritors of Seath's legacy. That takes us to Section 3, the Twin Crystal Sages. These inheritors are the extraordinary preacher twins known as the Crystal Sages. According to the in-game item, the Soul of a Crystal Sage, these twins were once united. They served as spiritual guides to the scholars of the Grand Archives. But eventually, there was this massive historic schism. In a pact formed long ago, one of the twins actually left to ally with the undead legion of Farin to train their sorcerers. They quite literally divided their immense knowledge. One sage gave the undead legion a ring to shorten spellcasting time, and a special sage's coal to allow the blacksmith to craft crystal weapons. But here is where the lore gets incredibly dark. If you look at the description for the sage's crystal staff, it says, "Crystal spheres devour the will of the user." Think about that for a second. It doesn't just drain your magical energy, it literally eats your willpower. Sure, it increases the potency of your sorceries, but at a massive cost to the caster. Just like Big Hat Logan going hollow from this knowledge, the sages are wielding a power that is actively consuming them. Which brings us to the ultimate prize. Section 4. The Moonlight Greatsword. This is the absolute pinnacle of gemstone assault in the Dark Souls universe. It's the physical manifestation of Seath the Scaleless's terrifying crystal magic. And it isn't just a sword shaped like a crystal, it's a rare dragon weapon forged directly from the tail of Seath himself. The lore tells us this sword is imbued with Seath's magic, which gets unleashed as a massive wave of moonlight. For players wanting to dish out some serious crystalline carnage, this is for sure one of the most coveted weapons in the entire game. What's really fascinating is how perfectly this lore translates into the actual gameplay mechanics.
To wield it, you need 16 strength, or just 11 if you're holding it two-handed. But it demands a whopping 28 intelligence. Why? Because it's a weapon made of pure magic. It scales incredibly well with your intelligence stat, though that scaling drops off pretty steeply once you hit 40. Plus, just holding this giant crystal blade boosts your magic defense by 40 points. It heavily rewards a dedicated sorcerer build. And the moveset? Oh, it's legendary. When you do a heavy attack with the Moonlight Greatsword, it flings these ethereal blades of magic that actually explode on impact. This gives you a massive combat advantage, causing heavy knockback and sending your foes flying or just knocking them completely flat. But there's a catch, which ties perfectly back into that tragic cost of crystal magic we talked about earlier. Every single time you use this heavy ranged attack, it chews through 20 to 40 points of the weapon's durability. It's immense, explosive power, sure, but it rapidly degrades the weapon itself. So, how do you actually get your hands on this legendary blade?
All right, Section 5, claiming the legendary blade. Getting the Moonlight Greatsword means exploiting Seath's greatest weakness during his boss fight, and you've got to follow a highly specific procedure. Step 1, keep your equip load light so you can move fast and sprint directly to the crystal that grants Seath his immortality. Step 2, do not attack it yet. Wait for Seath to shuffle all the way over to you and start his breath attack. Step 3, the second he attacks, shatter the crystal. That'll temporarily stun him. Step 4, use that precious little window to sprint around behind him and attack his middle tail. And this is absolutely crucial. You have to hit the very tip of the tail or it just won't work. And to do that, you need to aim for a very specific number, 500. You have to deal roughly 500 damage to the tip of that middle tail before Seath recovers from the stun. If you pull off this precise, incredibly dangerous maneuver, the tail severs, and the Moonlight Greatsword automatically drops right into your inventory. Honestly, even if you end up dying to Seath right after, you still keep the sword. When you finally hold that glowing crystal blade, you aren't just holding a cool weapon from Dark Souls. You are holding a literal piece of video game history. The legacy of the Moonlight Greatsword actually dates all the way back to 1994, to the developer From Software's very early game, Kingsfield. For 30 years now, this crystal blade has been a staple, the ultimate reward for players willing to brave dragons and dark magic. Which brings us to our final thought for today. We've seen how gemstone assaults are the super fun, flashy trope in anime and sci-fi, but Dark Souls makes it so heavy. Crystals in this universe devour the mind. They turn brilliant scholars like Big Hat Logan completely hollow. They split the twin sages apart. So I'll leave you with this question. Knowing the tragic lore behind this magic, and knowing that it literally devours the willpower of the user, is the explosive, raw power of the Moonlight Greatsword actually worth the risk? Well, that's a question every sorcerer in Dark Souls has to answer for themselves. Thanks so much for joining me on The Explainer today, and keep questioning the world around you.